Welcome into the Sportsmemo, NFL Every Game on the Board betting podcast with our guest, Teddy Covers. Teddy, happy Friday to you. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Hey, happy Friday. I always like that one. Happy Friday, guys. Yeah, sure. It's been a weird weekend. It's been like raining and cloudy in Vegas all week. And all of a sudden it's like Friday. You're like, man, where's the sunshine? But it's all good. Very excited about the upcoming weekend.
Absolutely. We got full slate here. We're doing the top half on this segment. Then we'll bring in Robbie Vino to finish off the NFL Every Game on the Board podcast. And Teddy, NFL sides, you're at 63%. NFL year-to-date, 59%. And longer term, NFL since 2015, my favorite one, 57, almost 58% NFL. So you know what you're talking about. Anything you want to get off your chest before we get into each matchup?
Oh, there's lots of stuff I want to get off my chest before we get into the matchup. But, cashed in last night, an easy one with the Titans over the Jags. You like them, when the big plays work in your favor. And certainly, a four-play stretch in the second quarter changed that game completely with a goal line stand from Tennessee, followed by a 99-yard touchdown run from Derrick Henry. But you like them when they come nice and easy on that, like the Titans did last night. We'll see if we can put together more easy winners for the clients this weekend. The three-pack already locked and loaded. 3 for Sunday, available right now at sportsmemo.com.
Yeah, and Teddy, we were just talking about it before we started. I mean, we were both on that side. I saw it as just the team with motivational issues, short week, on the road. In the NFL, it was pretty much an auto play for me. You actually took out of it something particular to Jacksonville, huh? You're looking to fade them the rest of the way?
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, I've been fading the Jags lately. Let's just put it that way. And last night's game certainly, and Jacksonville fits into that profile of a team that you don't want on the road, on a short week, late in the season. You have the squads that had the high expectations, and they're not going anywhere. Those are not, or do not tend to be, bet on teams in December road games.
Teddy, we got 105 to 118 here. And guys, right before we start, want to give out this special coupon code for the podcast. It's NFLHALF. That's NFLHALF at checkout for half off Teddy's rest of the NFL season. That's $200 worth of savings at sportsmemo.com. NFLHALF at checkout for his full season NFL service. We got 105, 106 here, Teddy. Baltimore at Kansas City, 51 the total. Looks like KC 6.5 laying at home pretty much across the board.
Yeah, a whole lot of wise guy support for the Ravens this week. And certainly when you look at these two teams' season-long defensive numbers, there's a pretty big discrepancy. Baltimore, after last week's dominant performance defensively at Atlanta, you don't see Matt Ryan get held under 100 yards very often. 97 net passing yards for the Falcons last week at home. And all of a sudden that Ravens defense now not only number one in the NFL on a yards per play basis, but number one in the NFL by a wide margin on a yards per play basis. 4.6 yards per play allowed. The average, 5.7. So it speaks volumes about how good that Baltimore defense is. And the betting markets, look at Kansas City, who's given up 6 yards a play this season. A Chiefs team that, the last two games, they've given up 87 points to the Raiders and Rams. And they say this is not a defense that we want to be laying this type of price with. All that being said, the Ravens had lost, 4 in a row? 3 in a row. And things were falling apart, and Harbaugh was on the hot seat and all of that, and now it's 3 straight wins. Who'd they beat? They beat Cincinnati, Oakland, and an Atlanta team, on the week after their season ended. So it's not like we've seen this Ravens team knocking off superior competition during this Lamar Jackson-led hot streak. And, of course, if Baltimore falls behind here, do you want Lamar Jackson trying to catch you up from behind? I don't. I can tell you that much. Ravens in game, if they fall behind, I want no part of Baltimore. All that being said, Patrick Mahomes last week was making throws that he shouldn't be making. Throwing late on his back leg across the middle, and they were working against the Raiders defense. That's not going to work against Baltimore defense. And Mahomes, I'm not going to say he has a reputation, but I still recall back to the preseason when he was throwing all those picks in training camp, and he's a guy that wants to fit balls into tight windows. That could work in the Ravens' favor. Although Baltimore's defense hasn't exactly been creating turnovers in bunches on a week-in, week-out basis. And the pass rush hasn't been that dominant either.
Teddy, we got 107-108 Indianapolis, Houston. It looks like 50 the total, with Houston laying 5 or 4.5 at home.
Well, I got both these teams wrong last week, so let me start. With that as the beginning of the analysis, because I was on Indy, and then I'm not gonna say they were wrong against Jacksonville, but they didn't score any points, so it wasn't certainly wasn't a right side in that ball game. And I had the Browns in their 4 turnover debacle against the Texans in that ball game, where things. It just didn't break right for Cleveland from the get-go. So, certainly, when you look at these two teams over the course of the season, and you look at the matchups on the field, there's nothing that says that Indy can't compete here against Houston. Certainly, when the Texans are going to finish plus 4 in turnovers, they're going to win a bunch of games. And Houston has really been impressive at avoiding turnovers like the plague. They've only had one game where they've committed turnovers in the last 6 weeks, which is hard to do. In that one game, when they won against Denver, they had 2. It was the one that they won against Washington. They had 2 interceptions and a fumble lost in that contest. That's it. So it's been a team that has been able to avoid mistakes. And boy, you look at that Texans passing game against an Indy defense. The Colts defense has impressed me this year. They're better than I thought they were going to be, significantly better. And Darius Leonard's been a leading tackler as a rookie, a linebacker. There's been a pass rush for the Colts. T.Y. Hilton's banged up. And for as good as Indy's defense has been, they're good enough to shut down Houston. Houston's kind of clicking right now and playing on this field at home, where they've been very comfortable. 3rd straight home game for the Texans. The spot to me says Indy, no question. I do worry, however, about the Colts' ability to handle that Texans pass rush, a unit that's capable of being pretty dominant. And of course, if the Texans don't turn the ball over like they haven't done, it's not like Indy's defense is forcing a ton of turnovers on a week-in, week-out basis. The Colts can't force turnovers here. Does not bode well for their chances.
Teddy, you talk about the scarcity of turnovers for Houston. How much of that, where do you fall as far as turnovers and the correlation going forward? And does it change from interceptions and fumbles?
Teams that are taking care of the football tend to take care of the football. Teams that are making mistakes tend to continue making mistakes. There is an element in the betting markets, and it's very real. They say, oh, my God, so-and-so's minus 20. The Niners are minus 20 in turnovers right now. And Tampa's minus 18. And all those numbers can do is go up.
Right.
I don't buy that. Mm-hmm. Teams that are playing from behind with bad quarterbacks and bad offensive lines are going to turn the ball over. It's what they do. And you look at the other end of the equation. New England is up at the positive turnover differential every single season. And so do the teams with good quarterbacks who aren't playing from behind and good offensive lines. So to say, all right, well, this team's negative turnover differential, therefore they're an undervalued commodity, or this team is a positive turnover differential, therefore they're an overvalued commodity. To my mind, that's not looking enough at the situation. You have to see what's the story with these turnovers. Are they unforced errors? Is your QB throwing interceptions in the red zone on first down?
Yeah.
Or are these, the type of turnovers that are, likely to? Is it something that's systemic within what they're trying to do, or is it something that's just random? And as a handicapper, it's your job to be able to tell the difference between those two.
Well said, Teddy. We got 109-110 up next. Carolina at Cleveland. Looks like 1-2, depending where you shop in this one, Teddy, and that's the Panthers laying on the road. 47 the total.
Sure, and I'm interested that there's a fair bit of – this is the first time I've seen any betting market support for Carolina in like a month.
Right.
During this span, as the Panthers have gone from a 6-2 likely, wild card team / contending with New Orleans for a division title into the 6-6 team that's now on the outside looking in, and everything's falling apart, and the sky's falling for Carolina. They haven't been getting whipped in these games. They've come up short in a bunch of coin flip games at the end. And it's certainly frustrating for the Panthers. Obviously, you read the quotes. They're a very frustrated team right now. All of a sudden, Ron Rivera can't coach. Well, I don't know if Rivera could ever coach, but I don't think that it's his fault. You can blame him for the 2-point conversion try in Detroit that didn't come through. But other than that, I don't know that it's Rivera's fault. And, of course, Cam Newton Cam Newton was bad last Sunday, flat out. He's got a bump shoulder. He's struggling to be on the practice field. Newton's not 100%, but he's certainly a better QB than the one we saw last week. Now, Cleveland showed us that they couldn't handle prosperity. It was a fluky game in some regards against Houston, but Baker Mayfield made mistakes, and Mayfield is going to do that like any rookie quarterback against some of the more challenging defenses that he faces. The Panthers can be challenging in that they mix up their schemes pretty good, but from a pure talent perspective, this is not one of Ron Rivera's better defenses. All that being said, I do lean Carolina in this ballgame. I haven't pulled the trigger, and I probably won't. But it's a Panther spot in a real way, and I'm not sure there's much the Browns are going to do about it.
Guys, remember the coupon code NFLHALF at checkout for half off Teddy's rest of NFL season, up to $200 in savings. Teddy, we got NFC matchup here, 111-112. The aforementioned Atlanta Falcons, you mentioned their season over. They're traveling to play Green Bay. 51 the total. Looks like the Packers laying 5 at home.
Yeah, and boy, if you talk about one game that I want no part of this week, this is probably it.
Right.
And I really want no part of. I'm not convinced. There's a thought process out there that Mark McCarthy's gone, the Packers are going to play great this week. I don't think Philbin's the answer either. It's been his offense that Aaron Rodgers has been ripping all year. This is a Packers team. They lost 5 of their last 6. Their coach just got canned. They're not going to the postseason. I'm not convinced that Aaron Rodgers is the most liked guy in the locker room. The receiving core is no good. This isn't a team I'm comfortable laying points with right now. Atlanta, well, they're coming off, an ugly no-show game against Baltimore at home. Now you have a dome team playing at Lambeau in December with nothing to play for. And, their defense is getting better. They got Deion Jones back in the lineup. He had 13 tackles and a sack last Sunday. But, Matt Ryan's got a 25 to 5 TD to interception ratio. Julio Jones is the leading receiver in the NFL, and the Falcons stink. So, and then they had, no energy last week whatsoever. So I guess if I had to play this game, I would be more looking at the Atlanta side. I don't want any part of Green Bay, but do I trust the Falcons? No. I don't trust the Falcons right now. They were pretty flat last week. They made a ton of mistakes the week before. And, road games in cold conditions for teams like Atlanta, like Jacksonville, teams that were supposed to be good but aren't. No, there's better bets on the board than this one.
Yeah, I have no interest in getting involved in that one either. Teddy, we got 113-114 New Orleans, Tampa Bay, NFC South matchup here, 9.5. The Saints laying on the road, 54.5 the total.
Yeah, remember what Ryan Fitzpatrick did against New Orleans back in September. 48-40 as 10-point dogs, 417 yards, 5 TDs from Fitzpatrick in that game. Since that time, of course, the Saints have been pretty juggernauty, 10-1 straight up, 9-2 against the spread. They'll certainly remember what happened. Although let's be honest, the Saints have had their fair share of problems with the Bucs in recent years. They've lost 4 of the last 7 meetings straight up, and against the spread. Speaking of turnovers, Jameis Winston back-to-back weeks with no turnovers. He's changed his game. Earlier in the season, the Fitzmagic thing definitely affected him. And Tampa was taking all of these shots downfield, and I'm not saying Winston can't make those throws. He certainly can. He was the number 1 pick overall for a reason. But those are not the high percentage, low frequency of takeaway throws that he's been making the last couple of weeks. It's been a lot more check down routes, a lot more shorter routes, a lot more crossing routes for Tampa, and lo and behold, Winston's playing good ball. I'm not in any rush to be betting on the Saints right now. We talk about a team that has built an enormous betting bandwagon, and then they played back-to-back Thursdays, and the offense looked out of sync in both those games. Now they're back to Sunday, and on the road, may well rain. The weather early forecast for Tampa is not a pretty one on Sunday. There's 0 point spread value backing the Saints right now, and they were out of sync in 2 straight weeks. And I'm not convinced the offense gets right back into sync in what could be nasty conditions on Sunday. So definitely lean here towards the home dog. Bucks are playing better football.
Teddy, we got 2 AFC East matchups to end it here. New York Jets, Buffalo Bills up first. Looks like 38 the total, with the Bills laying 3.5 at home.
Yeah, Bills laying 3.5. That doesn't look like a point spread that is going to attract a lot of attention. But at the same time, you look at current form. Look at the Bills the last couple of weeks. Okay, they had those ugly losses when they didn't have a quarterback. When it was Nathan Peterman or Derek Anderson or whoever the hell they were trotting out there, and they got blown out by 37-5 and 25-6 and 41-9, 3-week span against Indy, New England, and Chicago. Well, since that time, they went to the Jets and beat the Jets by 31. They knocked off Jacksonville at home. And last week, I know they lost to Miami. Make no mistake about it. They were by far the better team. They outgained Miami by 200 yards in that game. And it was fluky. Weird things happen, and, that can happen to teams like Buffalo. But when it came to, is this team ready to play? Has this team thrown in the towel? Can Josh Allen move the offense? The answer is yes, they're coming to play. No, they haven't thrown in the towel. And yes, Josh Allen is moving the football. The Bills' offense is very different now than it was just a few weeks ago. The Jets' offense isn't. They're supposed to have Sam Darnold back this week. And at times this season, with Darnold behind center, and when Enunwa and Robbie Anderson have been healthy, when they've been able to get something out of Crowell and company from the running game, this offense has looked explosive. They had downfield weapons. I mean, there was a handful of games early in the season where the Jets, all right, yeah, they're moving the football. That's a long way in the rearview mirror. Now, and the way they lost last week, where they had up 16-0 at Tennessee, they've got them on the ropes, and the way that game slipped away, and you could kind of feel the Jets hanging on to the rope and hanging on and slipping. I really worry about the Jets' ability to compete this week, even against a divisional rival that beat them by 31 less than a month ago. I'm not sold on the backing the Jets in Buffalo with in the last few games of the Todd Bowles era.
Teddy, last game for us, and guys, remember the coupon code NFLHALF at checkout for $200 worth of savings, half off of Teddy's rest of NFL season at sportsmemo.com. An interesting one for you, Teddy. You're 1 win away on your Miami Dolphins season win total bet of over 6.5. We got them right now. This is the number 1 versus number 2 team in the AFC East. New England at Miami. Looks like the Pats 7.5 or 8 on the road. 48 the total in Miami Gardens on Sunday.
Yeah, and lo and behold, what are we seeing? What did we talk about earlier? We talked about, the statistical profiles, and the turnovers, and, New England's statistical profile is never one. I mean, I can't think of a season. Maybe the 1 year where they were killing everyone and winning by, the Randy Moss year. But literally, that's it. Statistically, the Patriots, year in, year out, look fairly mediocre. And look at this year, 5.9 yards per play gained, 5.7 allowed. They're plus 0.2 yards per play. You compare that to, the Steelers are plus a full yard per play. The Chiefs are plus a full yard per play. The Chargers are plus 1.3. And here's New England at plus 0.2. And all right, nothing to be excited about the Patriots. And that's why we see the money. There's no wise guy interest in the New England side. Worth noting, the Patriots have been trending under, 5 straight unders for New England. It's a defense that is much better than it was early in the season. The Dolphins are trending under. You're catching unders each of the last 4 weeks with an offense that is having their fair share of problems. Look, Miami's a mess, and if I cash my ticket, I still need 1 win. They got 4 weeks to do it. I don't know that I'm going to get it here. But the Dolphins are the worst 500 team in the NFL. The injuries everywhere. And I give Adam Gase a ton of credit. Adam Gase isn't going to get a vote for Coach of the Year. This team should probably be 0-12, or 1-11. Gase has coached a bunch of, coaxed a bunch of wins out of this Dolphins squad. And, of course, Miami has had their fair share of success against New England on this field. 27-20. Dolphins beat them straight up last year as 10.5-point dogs. 20-10. They beat them straight up in 2016 late in the campaign. They won here in 2014 as well as underdogs. And in 2013 on this field, Miami beats the Patriots. So they've certainly had success against New England. There's certainly not a groundswell of support for the Patriots in the wise guy community. But, man, you look at the matchups. And again, this is the Dolphins team that was outgained by 200 yards at home against the Bills last week and won. And I give them credit. They made a handful of big plays. New England's a different animal than Buffalo in that regard. It's Patriots or pass for this better, especially now this line has been bet down. And frankly, Chris has got a 7 with juice right now. There may be more of those. I don't know if there'll be a lot more of those, but it's certainly worth considering if you like the Patriots. There's no rush to lay the 7.5 when 7s could be coming.
Teddy, yeah, I think this is a little bit of a tricky handicap. I mean, you mentioned the Pats not being like spectacular, but they are covering numbers. I mean, depending what numbers.
Yeah, that's the whole point. I mean, this has been a team that has absolutely overachieved to their statistical profile, not just this year, not just last year, for the last decade plus in the Belichick-Brady era.
And Teddy, the last point I was going to make is, you bring up the home field, talked a lot about it. I agree with you. Being down here in South Florida right now, it's a known thing. The Pats struggle in South Florida. And this year, the Dolphins are 5-1 at home. So as far as bringing in the location of the game, I think there's really something to that, and you need to factor that in this handicap. What do you think about the location?
I think that New England is a lot better than Miami on any field. I think the Patriots are an undervalued commodity and have been in September. And look, have been in December repeatedly. Not once, not twice. Look at New England down the stretch. And you throw out some of those Week 17s that don't matter. And you look at the Patriots Weeks 13 to 16, and they're not a team that I've got a whole lot of interest in stepping in front of. Now, from a spot standpoint, here's this crappy Dolphins team that New England blew out earlier in the season. They just came off a big win against Minnesota. Up next, they got Pittsburgh at Pittsburgh next week. You say maybe it's a look ahead. Patriots don't play on this field. All of those factors are real. I still trust New England more than I trust Miami. I don't want the Dolphins as home dogs here. There is a class difference between these two teams that was very much on display when they met earlier in the season. Final score of that ball game: New England 38, Miami 7.
Teddy, what's on the docket this weekend? We got first Saturday with just the Army-Navy game, no full slate of college football. What does that change for you?
That changes for me in that I'm focusing on college basketball on Saturdays now instead of college football. But you know what the college basketball Saturday cards are. You spend all day, all night, Friday night working on it. So it's just how it is during college hoop season. But I mean, right now, for today, I'm locked and loaded NBA and college hoops action for Friday night. We've got 3 NFL winners already posted for Sunday, and I've got my first big ticket of the bowl season locked and loaded for next Saturday's action. Well, obviously, much more bowl stuff to follow, but looking forward to a strong weekend for myself and my clients.
All right, Teddy. Yep, you get that Cowboys-Eagles ticket, New Mexico Bowl winner up, and college basketball, USC TCU on FS1. Can check that out at sportsmemo.com. Teddy, is 63% NFL sides year-to-date, 59% NFL year-to-date overall, and 57%, above 57% since 2015 in the NFL. The coupon code is NFLHALF at checkout at sportsmemo.com. Up to $200 worth of savings. That's half off the rest of his NFL season, regular season, playoffs, Super Bowl. That's the Super Bowl props package. All of it is included. No extra charges later. Check it out at sportsmemo.com. We'll be right back with Robbie Vino to finish off the NFL Every Game on the Board podcast.